So here we've got a question about average and instantaneous velocity, and they're giving us a function f of x equals x squared plus x, and that's the function that tells us the location of a particular object at a specific time, the object moving along the y-axis. So they're asking us to look at this from x equals -3 to -1. And the first thing they ask is for average velocity. So for average velocity, what I need is basically the slope between, you'll remember this from earlier homeworks or from middle school or from wherever you learned about slope, y2 minus y1 equals x2 minus x1. That's going to give us the slope, and that is the average velocity. All right, but what are the numbers that we're going to be plugging into this y2, y1, x2, and x1? Well, in this case, it's going to be f of -1, that function evaluated at the second time, minus the function evaluated at the first time, and that's over -1 minus -3, because those were the x values. These came right from x, so that's how they fit into this sort of slope formula that you know. So I need to figure out what f of -1 is. I need to figure out what f of -3 is. So I'll go ahead and do that. And this is for part A. I'm going to do all of my extra work over on the side here. So let me go ahead and figure out what f of -1 is. So I'll write down my function, f of x, that is x squared plus x. So f of -1 is just going to be -1 squared plus -1. Well, that's just 1 minus 1, which is 0. So I know what my f of -1 is. I also need to find f of -3. Well, that's going to be -3 squared plus -3, which is going to give me 9 minus 3, which is 6. So now I have all of the information that I need. I can plug in my f of -1 right over here. I can plug in my f of -3 here, and I already know that I have -1 and -3. Alright, so my f of -1 was 0, minus my f of -3, which was 6, all over -1 plus 3, which is going to give me -6 over 2, which is -3. And so that is going to be our average velocity at that time. Okay, now they're going to ask us for the average velocity for x changing from -3 to -3 plus h. It really is the same process, except it's going to be a little bit messier. Basically, I'm doing f of -3 plus h in that first spot. So for part B, f of -3 plus h minus f of -3, and then on the bottom I have -3 plus h minus -3. So instead of doing f of -1, I'm kind of doing this f of -3 plus h here instead. So we already get a little bit of simplification that we can do. There's stuff that I can already plug in here. I'm not sure yet what f of -3 plus h is. So I'll go ahead and rewrite that. F of -3 plus h minus f of -3. Well, we already knew that f of -3 is 6, so I can just plug that in. Then on the bottom, I've got -3 plus h plus 3. Those 3's are going to cancel each other out, and that's just going to leave me with an h on the bottom. So all I've got left now is to figure out what f of -3 plus h is. Let's do that over here. F of -3 plus h. I'm going to need a little more room than I have over here. So that's going to be -3 plus h squared plus -3 plus h. And when I do this squaring, if you have to do it in slower steps, you can do that. I'm going to do it as quickly as I can right now. We have 9, and then we have minus 6h, and we have plus h squared. If you FOIL that out, you'll get that. Minus 3 plus h. Okay, looks like I probably have some stuff I can cancel at this point. I do. 9 minus 3 is going to leave me with 6. Minus 6, what do we have here? plus h is going to be minus 5h, all right? And then I have my plus h squared. Okay, so I can fill this in now. I have 6 minus 5h plus h squared minus 6 on the top and h on the bottom. My 6's cancel. That's going to leave me with a negative 5h plus h squared over h. And when I simplify that the last time, I'm going to end up with negative 5 plus h. And so that is what my answer is for the average velocity, negative 5 plus h. And then the final thing is they want the instantaneous velocity at negative 3. And what that is the limit as h goes to 0 of my answer from part B, that negative 5 plus h. And so if I plug a 0 in for the h there, when I take that limit, I'm just going to end up with negative 5. And so negative 5 plus h for B and negative 5 for C. And that is how you solve this question. You will at some point have tools that will allow you to find average velocities and instantaneous velocities a bit faster. Well, instantaneous velocities, not necessarily average velocities. But for now, for this homework assignment, you've really got to stick with this. So let's go through one more time exactly what we did. For the average velocity, when we were going from negative 3 to negative 1, we used the formula that we know for slope. We needed to do the function evaluated at the second point minus the function evaluated at the first point over the x value for the second point minus the x value for the first point. That took some computation so that we could fill in some blanks, and when we simplified, we came up with negative 3. For the second part, we did the same thing, except our second point wasn't a specific number. It wasn't f of negative 1, it was f of negative 3 plus h. So we used the computations we did before and came up with a computation for negative 3 plus h, for which I should put some equal signs. Let me put those there. And when we did all of the simplification that we needed to do, we came up with negative 5 plus h. And for the last step, we took the limit as h went to 0, and that gave us negative 5.